Welcome back to our channel, the ultimate source of information on all the explosive drama, shocking twists, and unforgettable moments from Genoa. With Traci's keen eye for people, she may soon expose Patty's dark scheme. Today is a great day to delve deeper into the earth-shattering events that are shaking the very foundations of the Abbott family. Join us as we analyze a confrontation that will go down in the history of television series. The chandeliers of the Genoa City Athletic Club cast a brilliant, golden glow over the town's elite. Crystal champagne flutes clinked in harmonious celebration. Soft jazz music drifted through the air, mingling with the scent of expensive perfumes and the hushed, polite laughter of high society. It was a night of absolute perfection, a flawless facade of wealth and prestige. But beneath this glittering, tranquil surface, a massive, unstoppable storm was rapidly brewing. A storm named Traci Abbott. For decades, the residents of this town have known Traci as the eternal peacemaker. She is the celebrated romantic author. She is the gentle, understanding soul. She is the emotional glue that has miraculously held the fractured, chaotic Abbott family together through countless tragedies and corporate wars. But tonight, the author's pen was traded for a warrior's sword. The gentle, forgiving smile was entirely replaced by a look of absolute, unyielding fury. Traci Abbott was not here to mingle with the socialites. She was here for justice, and she was ready to burn the room down to get it. Flanking Traci were the two most important men in her life, her brother, Jack Abbott, and her nephew, Kyle Abbott. Together, they moved through the crowded, opulent ballroom like a unified, unstoppable front, a terrifying phalanx of grief and sheer determination. Jack's face was a rigid mask of stoic regret, his dark eyes betraying the profound exhaustion of a man who had been manipulated, emotionally sedated, and pushed to the absolute brink of his sanity by the very woman they were hunting. Kyle walked with a rigid, terrifying stiffness, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. His mother, Diane Jenkins, was missing again. The agonizing trauma of his childhood, the long, dark years spent mourning a mother who had previously faked her own death in a park, were violently bubbling up to the surface, threatening to completely drown him in despair. But tonight, the Abbott men were not victims. They were an army, and Traci was their commanding general, leading them into a battle of emotional attrition. Across the sprawling room stood their target, Patty Williams. She was dressed to the nines in a stunning evening gown, a serene, almost childlike smile plastered across her face as she sipped her drink. Patty has always been the ultimate, terrifying wild card of Genoa City. She is the deeply disturbed woman who once altered her entire face through plastic surgery to become Mary Jane Benson. She is the woman who famously carried around a stuffed cat, conversing with it as if it were real. She is the woman who once pulled a trigger and shot Jack Abbott, leaving him bleeding out on the floor. Yet, somehow, through a twisted combination of pity and manipulation, she had woven her way back into his life. She had exploited Jack's vulnerabilities, twisted his mind, and orchestrated a calculated campaign of psychological warfare that had driven Diane out of the Abbott mansion and into the terrifying, silent unknown. Patty stood there, soaking in the ambience, truly believing she had won. She thought the game was over and the prize was hers. She was dead wrong. The music seemed to slow down, the tempo dragging as the tension spiked. The ambient chatter of the gala faded into a dull, distant roar. Traci marched across the polished Italian marble floor. She did not hesitate for a single second. She did not waver in her stride. She stepped directly into Patty's line of sight, completely and aggressively blocking her path. The confrontation had officially begun. The air in the room instantly turned to ice, breathing stopped. Eyes darted nervously toward the unfolding drama. The predator had suddenly, violently become the prey. Where is she, Patty? Where is Diane? Traci's voice was not a loud shout, but it resonated with a lethal, commanding authority that echoed sharply off the walls of the athletic club. She did not offer a polite greeting. She did not offer any societal pleasantries. She demanded the absolute truth about Diane Jenkins. And this is the moment I almost screamed at the screen. Seeing the usually sweet, accommodating, and endlessly patient Traci Abbott transform into an absolute powerhouse of righteous vengeance was nothing short of breathtaking television. She was channeling the formidable spirit of her late father, John Abbott himself, standing tall. Her eyes piercing straight through the thick layers of delusion that Patty had wrapped herself in for protection. Patty blinked rapidly, her serene, triumphant smile faltering for a fraction of a second before returning with a sickening, artificial sweetness. She tilted her head, playing the innocent, misunderstood victim, a role she had perfected over decades of psychiatric evaluations, institutionalizations at Fairview, and countless manipulative schemes. She tried desperately to deflect the incoming assault. She feigned total ignorance. She spoke in that breathless, girlish tone she always used when cornered, claiming she had absolutely no idea what Traci was talking about, insisting that she only ever wanted Jack to be happy and at peace. It was a masterful, chilling performance of delusion, a blatant attempt to gaslight the entire Abbott family right there in the middle of the crowded gala. But Traci Abbott was completely immune to the poison. Traci took another step closer, entirely invading Patty's personal space. She did not let the woman breathe. She did not let her spin another web. Cut the act, now. Traci's words were sharp. They were precise. They were lethal. She began to systematically and ruthlessly dismantle Patty's carefully constructed facade. She listed every single lie, every subtle manipulation, every twisted, psychotic game Patty had played over the last few turbulent months. Traci spoke of the agonizing, suffocating pain inflicted on her family. She pointed a trembling finger directly at Kyle, whose eyes were red-rimmed and filled with a terrifying, explosive mixture of profound sorrow and unadulterated rage. Traci demanded that Patty look at the son who was currently agonizing over the mysterious, horrifying disappearance of his mother, a disappearance that had Patty's chaotic, bloody fingerprints all over it. Jack and Kyle remained entirely silent throughout the verbal barrage, but their silence was a weapon of mass emotional destruction. They stood perfectly still behind Traci, their looming, protective presence adding an unbearable, crushing weight to her relentless assault. Jack's silence was a devastating, heartbreaking condemnation of the woman he had once tried to save, the woman he had recently, foolishly, allowed back into his orbit out of a misplaced savior complex. Kyle's silence was the terrifying silence of a desperate son holding back a Category 5 hurricane of grief. They did not need to shout. They did not need to make a physical scene. By allowing Traci to take the absolute lead, they demonstrated a unified, unbreakable family bond that Patty, in all her desperate, lonely obsession, could never hope to penetrate or understand. Their solidarity was a fortress, and Patty was crashing against its walls. The tension in the room reached a spectacular, suffocating boiling point. The surrounding socialites, the ruthless titans of industry, the relentless gossips of Genoa City, all stopped to whatever they were doing. The clinking of glasses ceased entirely. The jazz band faltered and faded into uncomfortable silence. A massive, breathless crowd formed a tight perimeter around the four figures. It was a public execution of character. Patty was completely surrounded by the glittering elite of the city, all of them watching her unravel in high definition. The sheer claustrophobia of the moment began to suffocate her. The walls of the athletic club were closing in on her mind. The innocent, wide-eyed victim routine was failing in real time, crumbling to dust under the harsh, unforgiving spotlight of public scrutiny and Abbott fury. The dam finally broke. Patty's artificial smile violently dropped, replaced by a look of sheer, unadulterated panic. Her eyes widened, darting wildly around the room as the immense, crushing pressure of Traci's relentless interrogation shattered her fractured psyche. She could no longer hide behind the polite fiction she had created in her head. Her breathing grew shallow, rapid, and erratic. She started to speak, her voice trembling and cracking, stripping away the lies piece by agonizing piece. The dark, ugly secrets began to spill out onto the marble floor for everyone to hear. She confessed to the emotional manipulation. She confessed to the calculated psychological warfare she had waged to separate Jack and Diane. She began to reveal the terrifying, twisted depths of her involvement in Diane's sudden, inexplicable vanishing act, her words painting a horrifying picture of obsession and cruelty. Every word that tumbled out of Patty's mouth was a jagged dagger into the heart of the Abbott family, yet it was a necessary, brutal surgery to extract the toxic truth. She detailed, with chilling clarity, how she had preyed upon Jack's moments of extreme emotional weakness. She explained how she had twisted his perceptions of reality, and how she had actively, maliciously worked to create a hostile, toxic environment that made Diane feel entirely isolated, despised, and unsafe in her own home. While she frantically stopped short of confessing to a physical murder, the sinister, dark implications of her actions regarding Diane's disappearance sent a collective, audible shudder through the entire ballroom. She had orchestrated a masterpiece of emotional destruction, and now the architect was being forced to look at the devastating ruins she had created. Traci delivered the final, devastating blow. She did not offer a shred of forgiveness. She did not offer an ounce of pity. She stared deeply into Patty's fractured, chaotic soul and demanded the one thing Patty Williams had always managed to avoid: true, unflinching accountability. Traci commanded Patty to face her own conscience, to look in the mirror and acknowledge the monstrous, unforgivable pain she had inflicted on innocent people who had only ever tried to help her. She demanded that Patty find a way, if any existed in her twisted reality, to make amends for the catastrophic damage she had caused to Jack, to Kyle, and to the missing Diane Jenkins. It was a profound moral judgment delivered with the heavy, final force of a judge's gavel, leaving Patty utterly defenseless, weeping, and entirely exposed to the judging eyes of the world. The immediate aftermath of Traci's explosive confrontation left the grand ballroom in a state of absolute, stunned paralysis. Patty Williams stood trembling, her darkest secrets laid bare under the unforgiving chandeliers. Her grand delusions completely shattered by the unbreakable strength of an Abbott woman protecting her own. Jack, Kyle, and Traci stood victorious, a united, impenetrable front of resilience amidst the emotional carnage of the evening. They had faced the darkness and dragged it kicking and screaming into the light. But as the shocked whispers slowly began to fill the room once more, a chilling, terrifying uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Patty's twisted machinations had been exposed, but the ultimate mystery remained completely unsolved. With Patty's lies finally brought to light, what terrifying truth is still waiting to be uncovered about the ultimate fate of Diane Jenkins?